Okay, so here's my layout. I named this because of the design, label series, label average, label next bowling date. Button names didn't happen, that's not good. BTN calculate, that's what my design says, BTN clear. The reason they didn't get names is because I already had some buttons, and then I realized I want icons on my buttons, so I went and stole them from a different program. If you don't have the icons, don't worry about it. I will put the icons in the folder soon. In the meantime, if you want to get them later, I stole these from that sales tax calculator that's in the download starter. So I just opened the sales tax calculator, highlighted the 3 buttons in there, and pasted them in there. Already had icons on them. I didn't like the exit icon, so I replaced it. Now I don't like these two because they're too small because that one's so big. So what I hope to do in my spare time while you're in lab not asking me questions, and that happens a lot, is modify these so that they become 32 by 32-bit icons and they're the same size, a little bigger. Because I can't find a good exit icon that's 16 by 16. You can't see what the heck it is. It's too small. The one that was in there was fine. I'm going to modify those later. This is button exit. And somebody asked, what'd you call that? Doesn't really matter. Pick bowling pin. We're good to go. All right, so now what? Now we've got a screen layout. It's time to start writing some code. Well, what do I do first? The answer is make sure your design's open and then go to your design. Okay, my design is open. So I go to my design and I'm going to the pseudocode because I've now taken care of all this stuff. I picked the names out of here. Going to my pseudocode. My pseudocode has some excess stuff. That's interesting. What's over there? Wow. We'll have to figure that out later. Where's my button calc? There it is. Which one of these should I do first? Button calc, because it's on the left, right? No. Should we do the easy one? Exit. Oh, I can handle that. Okay, come over here, double click. Now what do I do first? Describe it, or go steal it from another program, because this is going to do the same thing. This method closes the form, comma, exiting the program. Next line, backslash. Remember, that's what my method descriptions look like. No space underneath, though there should be one blank line here, so that when we collapse them, everything is beautiful. The command inside here is this lowercase dot close. Semicolon. No little squiggles, we should be okay, but we better test this, right? Why? Oh, come on, it's so simple, let's just skip it. What if you named the wrong button, button exit? That could happen. Plus, there's another side benefit of testing it. I have to run the program, which makes it save, which is a good thing too. So let's run. Click exit. Yay. Take a break, have a beer. Not in class. It's too far to walk to graffiti, so we'll just save all our beer till later. Now what? Clear. That's easy, right? Because it's just clear, and there's 3 different ways to do it, we found. So let's go talk about that. Let's create button clear. Click. First thing I do with that is move it up. So maybe the reason you do button calculate is because it's alphabetically first. Ooh, that'd be smart. But I'm into easy. I can re-alphabetize later. Okay, my lines aren't quite right. Pull that up another line. There we go. This method clears / resets the inputs and outputs. Come on. Why did I put reset in there? Because of the date picker. I'm not clearing it. I already know that because it's in my design. Yes, sir.
How did you just drag that after you highlighted?
How did I drag it?
Yeah.
In this case, because I don't have a blank line underneath, I took these and the blank line. I prefer to take a blank line underneath if there is one. And then I just pointed in the blue and dragged. That's it. And then I picked it, and if it didn't move quite right, I dragged it again a little higher until it lines up and I get my blank lines where I want them in this case. So say, no, never mind. So you highlight them first, and I highlight lines. I don't highlight pieces of text. I highlight lines, point to the blue, and drag it up. Good question. If I'm doing magic up here, there's no magic, folks. You guys are creating the magic. If you don't know the trick, you got to ask. Save you time. Yes, sir.
I'm having some issues again.
Again?
Yeah.
Now what?
I don't know. Now my buttons are private point, button click, button one click.
All right, what happened to Lyle is I think this is what he did. He had all three of them selected and double clicked, and it created an event. All right, but they all have different names, so it created a button one click event. If Lyle comes over here to the event handler, the lightning bolts, they probably all three link to the same place. Mine don't. Right? So what Lyle has to do to fix this problem is click on button exit and make sure this says button exit click. If it doesn't, change it or delete it. Button clear. The click event probably says button exit click because we tested it. When he ran his program, we clicked the clear button, it exited. So they're all three wired to the same procedure. You can do that? Oh, believe me, we're going to want to. When I click any of these 13 radio buttons, I all want them to go to the same place, and we're going to figure out what to do. They all go to the same place. You don't want that in these buttons, but that's somewhere along the way he had all three selected when he created, I think, that click event.
Probably copy.
Maybe, who knows? Or you created the button that, ooh, another don't do this. He created the exit button, double-clicked it to create the click event, then copied the exit button. Guess what happens when you copy it? Everything else is the same, including the event handlers, except the name. Ooh.
I know.
So do not create event handlers until after you've created all your buttons, which is normal if you do your design first, right? And we're kind of backtracking here. Right. If your design had been done and you're happy with your design, you wouldn't have any code there and you'd have buttons. You still have to remember to rename them, though. So that was another good lesson. Made the recording. Thank you for making that mistake.
Anytime.
Okay, we wanted to do button clear. Double click. There's my button clear. What do we do first? Come on. Give me the correct answer. There's only one. What do we do first? Nope. We're going to stay here till you get it right. Nope.
Follow the toe chart.
Oh!
Pseudocode?
Here. Follow your design, damn it. Look, you said what to do first, right there. Why are you guessing? Why are you thinking about this? You've already busted your brain doing the design. Don't do it again. Don't do it again. Text bowler name. He was right, but that was a lucky guess.
I was actually looking at my design.
I didn't have. Oh, you got your own copy of it open?
Yeah.
Share some M&Ms with him. All right.
That's why I said that.
Okay, good answer. You convinced me. All right, so we're going to clear the bowler name. TXT bowler name. Notice as soon as you type the TXT, you get a list. As soon as the one you want selected, press tab or just press dot. Watch, I can do it again. TXTB. Why is it not coming up? Because I backspaced. Visual Studio, for some goofy reason, when you backspace over these objects, it quits trying to give you a list because you're backing up. So it quits. I think I talked about it earlier, but control space brings up the list unless there's no choices. There was no choice. If I go back this far, then it gives me control space, gives you choices. If there's no options, and there's only one, it gives it to you. So I type that. If I now press a dot, bowler name is highlighted. If I press a dot, I know that's next because I teach the class. Dot. It fills in the rest. Now we saw in the notes that there were 3 ways to clear text box. We could use clear, reset, or the empty string. Well, we have lots of text boxes, so let's try them all. Normally, what do?
Keep them the same.
Keep them the same. Good answer, but not exactly. You want your M&Ms?
You want some?
No, what do? You do what you said to do in the design.
Oh.
If you said clear in the design, then clear them here. You know what? I don't even care. If you said clear in the design, you can use empty string here. His first answer was probably better. Be consistent. We can clear. Parentheses, semicolon. The parentheses are necessary. That's a method call. Methods, you can send information to methods. In this case, we're designating them, not sending you any. If you leave them out, you'll get an error, and Visual Studio might even give you good advice. Score 1. It's highlighted, dot. According to my notes, reset text ought to work. As soon as the right thing was highlighted, I started typing parentheses because I know they're next. Or you can press tab.
Question.
Sure.
Is there a way to set it so that when you do, say, like the opening parentheses, and it automatically already puts the new one?
I ignore it. I just keep typing. Because is there a way to tell it not to do that? Probably.
Well, no, it's not that. It's then once it does that, leaves the type in between the two.
You know why? Because later on, most of the time, you're going to want to type something there. And so is there a way to tell it not to do that? We don't want to, because in the future, we're going to be glad it's there. But skipping over the parentheses sometimes is annoying because it's already there, right? Like you said, as soon as I typed it, it gave me the ending one. You could arrow key pass. I just keep typing it. I was up there typing parentheses anyway, so I just keep typing it. You'll have to find what works for you. You can arrow, you can let go of the keyboard, go grab the mouse and click on the other side of the parentheses. Shame on you. Type it, arrow, something. That works. Text, we don't know that it works, but we'll prove it here in just a second. Text score 2, dot. I want to use the empty string. In the pseudocode, it says this. And we have to add a semicolon because we're C# programmers. But it's still not happy. This is going to take getting used to on your part. In the pseudocode, you just say, take my text box and turn it into an empty string. In the actual code, this doesn't make sense. This is a text box, right? If you touch it, it tells you, look on the left there, it says, this is a text box. You're saying, take the text box and turn it into an empty string. That's like saying, take this and turn it into an M&M. It's not going to work. You can't do it. I don't want to mess with the text box. I want to mess with what property of the text box. In this class, you will almost never mess with the object itself. You don't mess with the object, you mess with its property. Which one?
Text property.
Text property. Why did I know that? Because it said over here, if you're going to mess with, if you want to see what the user typed, if you want to mess with what's in the text box, it's the text property. So you have to translate your pseudocode to say .text equals the empty string, and then C# goes, oh, that's what you meant. I'm going to do text score 3, pick your technique, I don't care, because they're pretty messed up as it is. And then I'm going to put an inline comment here for you, so if you copy my code, maybe this will help. Don't use 3 techniques. Pick one. And no, you don't have to put that in your programs. I'm putting it in mine, so when you open mine and start stealing my code, you don't use 3 different techniques. But let's test that. All we did was text boxes, all 4 of them, so this is kind of late. Could have tested earlier, but I'm going to put some junk in there, and put some 3 junks in there, and junk, and clear. Magic. Pick one. Now we're not done yet, right? How do I know? Well, first of all, I wasn't following my design, so I have to go back to my design now, and it says clear, and then clear the date picker. Oh, I better clear my date picker here, or reset my date picker there after killing the program. It's supposed to go here. That's what the design says. DTP bowling date, we can't clear it, right? Pseudocode says set it to today. You don't mess with the object, right? We just said that with the text boxes. What about my date picker am I changing? Date picker. Oh, it's still in purple. The value property. If you're changing the date of the date picker, you can't change the text. You can try. It won't work. You change the date picker's value to what? Today. So it says today. And C# goes, never heard of it. What are you talking about? In C#, here's the translation. It's date dot today. No, it's not. Oh, Volker, you should have looked this up ahead of time. I got too many languages running through my head.
I think at system, I use system date thing.
Really? Shouldn't have to do that. You said system dot date dot today?
I'm not sure if that's how it is. I just use that in other thing, in other programming.
Yeah, that would be. How about parentheses? Nope. Oh, come on. Just make me feel really bad. The date class does not exist. He said try putting a system in front. Okay, I'll do it. But I shouldn't have to. There's something missing. Still said never heard of it. You shouldn't have to use system. Let me explain it just briefly. Because up here it says I'm using system. So whenever you want to use anything in system, you don't have to say it.
Oh,
Anybody find it? Date time? Oh, that's not bad. Ah, it's blue. That's a good sign. It's built in. Dot today, no squiggles. This is what happens when you have too many languages in your head and you had a meeting with your boss before class, so you didn't get a chance to practice and look like a genius. Those of you who are software developers and those of you who are taking more classes with me in the future, get used to me not looking like a genius because I ain't. It just looks like it because I prepped for class. I can't remember all this stuff. I got to look it up. I'm amazed at how many of you are sitting there typing out designs with nothing, no notes open, no Volker sample, no previous one that I did. You're just cranking them out. I'm amazed. Good for you. If it works. When you're writing programs, go back to the notes. Go back to my sample programs. Go back to previous programs you've written. If you can't remember this. If you remember it, great. But if you can't, go find it. If this hadn't worked, I probably would have Googled it. Maybe that's what they did over there. I probably would have Googled it, or just go look at some other program that's done that I probably have on my cloud drive someplace. I just didn't go look. Does that work? Let's go find out. Change the date. Anything. Hit clear. Cool. Today. Exit. Oh, cool. Now what? Back to the design. Clear the labels. LBL series, average, next bowling date. We're going to ignore this for right now. Right? You're going to add this ultimately, but what it means doesn't make sense. It's showing up later in the notes. So here's our three. I think I can remember all three of those. Here's a good place for a comment. Clear the outputs. Spell it right. Doesn't have to be a complete sentence. Inline comments just have to be spelled right. That's optional, but it's another good example. The blank line. Notice how I separated them with a blank line. Here's inputs, here's outputs. Makes it easy to find later. LBL series dot. What part am I changing? Text. Wait a minute. Could be text. And supposedly I can clear. Uh-oh. What the? This is one of those I just shake my head at. I can clear a text box, but I can't clear a label. What's up with that? Nope. It just ain't there. That's a Microsoft thing. Shake my head at. email that Bill Gates has refused to answer. Why can I clear? No, it's just one of those you want to go, come on. How about a reset text? Oh, I can do that. You know the one that works everywhere all the time? That one. That's why I like that one. It always works. Text boxes, labels. I don't have to remember which ones apply where. Yes, reset text works, but I just don't want to type that much. Clear was good, but it doesn't work for labels. It's goofy. Wait a minute. Next bowling date dot value, right? Huh? It's a label. Text. It's not a date. So I like using the empty string because I can use it everywhere. If you use clear up here for your text boxes, you got to do something different when you get to the labels. That's okay. I can tolerate that. I don't like it. Could use reset text everywhere. I just don't like it. But I'm old. What do I know? Okay, let's test the whole thing. Oh, wait a minute. How do we test the clearing of these? We could calculate, but we haven't written that yet. After we write it, we could hopefully remember to go back and test that. I'm not that good. So tell you what, you just watch. And I'm going to go to this label. I'm going to change its text. Where is it? Do I have multiple things selected? Why do I not have label on next bowling date? Oh, I'm in the events. It said it has to have a text property. Put some junk in there. Text property, put some junk in there. Notice I'm just clicking and typing because once you select text, it stays selected. Run. Good, now I got some junk. Put some more junk in there. Okay. Clear. Nice. John?
I got a quick question. It's kind of unrelated to the clean.
Okay, I love unrelated questions. Lay it on me.
It's just like, can you prioritize like when you tab to switch like through text boxes?
Mm-hmm.
Can you prioritize which one goes?
Mm-hmm. Here's what he's talking about. I press, normally when you hit a form like this, he's used to going to a web form and you press tab to go to the next one, right? What is it? What? Backwards? Oh, that's good. Then we go there. Then we hit the button. What the? Can we fix that? Yes, be patient. It's called the tab order. If you can't be patient, it's in the notes. Go dig it up about 10 pages down the road. But yes, we have to fix that. That'll make people crazy. Right? We have to fix that. And we will. The reason they're all wacky is because I built them that way. All right? Because I copied and because I built the date picker after the text boxes. I did that on purpose, believe it or not, so that the tab order's messed up so I can show you how to fix it. Thank you for bringing up the question. Maybe you don't believe me. He didn't. He's just, no. Yes, I did that on purpose. Okay. Now we've got the easy stuff out of the way. We've already celebrated twice. All lubricated up, ready to go to button calculate. Back to the form, double click. All right, still only have a blank line above, so I'm going to highlight these three and calc comes first. Drag, drag, drag. I'm going to park it right there. Oh, good. This method calculates and displays the average or the series, and maybe for the programmer who doesn't know what the heck that means, total, average, and next bowling date. Now some of you like to camelback these things. This should be more English-like. You don't have to put object names in there and say this, and notice in button clear, I didn't say this clears text this, text that, DTP this, LBL this. I'm trying to put a little bit of English. There's my description. And again, I'm doing this on purpose, folks. I'm putting a description first so I don't have to worry about remembering it later. If you do the same thing, you'll be a lot better off and happier. What do I do first? Have another M&M. Check the design. You know, if this was yesterday, I know you guys weren't here. Yesterday I was gone all day at a meeting, and most of it was how do we as teachers respond if an active shooter enters the building? Heaven forbid. Right? But the cops were running, our cops, our police force, our police science department was running this. And they have a real habit. Their instructor, I don't know if he's ex-Marine or if it's a cop thing, every time he asks a question, he puts in the Marine hooah, and they all go hooah, and they blow the bullet walls out of the place. Yeah. When it comes to this, I wish I could train you for the hooah thing. What do I do first? Check the design. Hooah, hooah. Okay, we got to get that into your head. Check the design. Check the design. The design says, transfer the contents of the bowling date into the variable. Ooh. We got a few problems here. I'm going to try it. You don't even have to bother. Bowling date equals DTP bowling date. Semicolon. You good with that? It goes, I don't know why it's green. Warning, assignment made to same variable. Oh, that's not what I wanted. This is supposed to be bowling date. And it goes, oh, in that case, never heard of it. First it was saying, make your date picker the same as this date picker, the same as itself, clone it. And goes, no, I'm not doing it. But now it's going, never heard bowling date. Okay, back to the notes. I've been using the word variable all through Unit 3. Now let's talk about it and how do we create them. We've got to cover variables before we discuss sequential programming. We've been doing it, right? Sequential programming, we cleared this, and this. That's sequential programming. We did it without variables in that case, but now that we're going to be doing calculations, we need variables. Every program uses variables to store values of some kind or another. Your welcome screen didn't, your states program didn't. Those are pretty simple ones. Most programs, particularly if they do any processing at all, need variables. Variables are memory locations from your computer's RAM that are reserved for your program's use. Your computer comes with gigabytes of RAM. Our program, your program, is going to request some of that from the operating system. I'm going to show you how in just a second. The operating system is going to go, Windows is going to go, I'm not using this, you can have that. How much memory do we get? Depends on what you ask for. We're going to learn how to do it. Okay. Where is it? We don't know. Windows finds memory that it's not using and assigns it to our program. What we are going to do is assign a name to that memory location, a variable name that we have already picked because it's in the design. Never mind. But it's in the design. We've already picked the name for the variables. We're going to assign a name to that memory location, and we're going to call it by name. So that's meters, or that's score 1. We're going to assign a name to it in our program. C# can't know what variables your program needs. There are other languages, when you start creating, you just start typing and it says, oh, I never heard of that, must be a variable, I'll make one. Never heard of that, must be a variable, I'll make one. Cool. Yeah, until you mistype it and then it makes memory for it when you really meant the one you had before. Figure that problem out when it doesn't work. This is better, believe it or not. Okay. How do we know what variables to declare? It's in your design. The other answer is you don't need to know. As soon as you try to use something that looks like a variable, how do we know it's a variable? This is a variable. How do we know that's going to be a variable? It doesn't have an object prefix. If there's no prefix, it's a variable. I can look in my design. If you insist on knowing which variables you need, you're going to need a variable for everything that's on the left-hand side of the equal sign that is not an object. I'm going to need a variable for bowling date, score 1, score 2, score 3, series, average, next bowling date. Think about all the variables you're going to need in your gas program. That's nothing. Dozens, hundreds of variables are not uncommon. So every time we need one of these, we need to declare that we need to tell the operating system, tell our program to tell the operating system we need a variable. If you need to know in advance, they're on the left-hand side of the equal sign in your pseudocode. Every input, you could go to the IOP. Every input needs a variable. Every output needs a variable. Remember our meters to yards program, there was a thing called feet. That wasn't an input, that wasn't an output. But it was on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So that's a straighter answer. Anything on the left-hand side of an equal sign that is not an object, a label, is a variable. Or, as soon as C# yells at you, you said never heard of it, you go, oh, I need to make my variable declaration. How do we declare variables? You, the programmer, tell C#, I need a variable. I'm going to call it this name. And we also have to tell it, and this is the tricky part, what type of data are we going to store in there? The type is what tells the operating system I need this much. We're going to talk about the different types here in just a minute. And as I said, the memory location has an address that Windows knows. We don't care. We as programmers, unless you're getting in really deep, like operating system construction and that kind of stuff, you don't care about memory addresses. It has a number, right? There's 4 billion of them. Which one did you give me? 103,617? I don't care. It's called meters. That's what our program knows. And our program, your program will link the word meters to that memory location. You don't care anymore. How do we name our variables? We already know. Start with a letter or an underscore and a letter. After that, anything you want, as long as it's letters, digits, and underscores. There may be a few others. I don't even think about it. Other languages let you put dashes and commas and things. Forget it. You go crazy. Just use letters and numbers. You can describe just about anything. Our standards then say camel case. And our standards say no prefix. There is another standard called Hungarian notation that puts a prefix on your variables, like an I for integer variables, and a D for double variables, and a S for string variables, and D for date variable. Wait a minute, I thought D was double. That's why we go to 3, and now look how long your variable names get, and I don't do it. But your future employer may require it. If you wish to do it, I have no problem with it as long as you do it all the time. Can't mix and match, shouldn't mix and match. C# doesn't care. But I would like you not to mix and match. Be consistent or follow your employer's standards. Whew, here's the different types of variables. Oh boy. I got to remember all these? Good news, no. This first group of 4 are whole numbers. Numbers without decimal places. Notice that a byte takes up 1 byte, an integer takes up 4 bytes, a long integer takes 8 bytes, and these others are bigger. If you don't need decimal places, you'll save memory in your program. Okay, 4 bytes, whoop-de-doo. You'll save memory in your program by choosing the right type. I used to say, if your number's never going to get bigger than 255 and it's not going negative, notice that a byte cannot hold a negative number. I used to say, use a byte. If your number, there's that number again. Look, 32,767. There it is again. What's with the 255? Nice and round. That's the number. Remember 8 light switches? How many different ways can I configure them? 256, 0 to 255. Magic numbers in binary. You have to memorize them? Hardly. But they keep coming back to haunt you. I used to say that. I don't anymore. I've been corrected by fellow instructors and senior programmers and experienced programmers that said, no, if we need a whole number, we use an int. That's why it has a star on it. If you want a whole number, you don't need decimal places, int. That's short for integer, which is programmer speak for a whole number. Integer. If your integer is going to be bigger than 2 billion, what the heck are you counting, number one? But if it's going to be bigger than 2 billion, then you might have to go to a long. we're not going that big. It's programming logic beginning. We'll keep it simple. If you need a whole number, use int. If you need a number with decimal places, there's three different kinds, excuse me. We never use float. It's not accurate enough. One of the problems with the binary number system, which is what computers understand, is when you try to represent fractions, how do you represent 3.75? A half plus a quarter plus an eighth plus a hundredth plus no, it's not a hundredth, a 1/28th. Some decimal numbers are very hard to represent. Floats make it even harder. Doubles, reasonable. If you need a number with decimal places, use a double, unless it's currency. Euros, dollars, drachmas. If it's some kind of currency, use a decimal, because it's even more accurate and the numbers can get bigger. It doesn't make a big difference, but it's in one of those, it's become a standard in programming. I'm teaching it to you now. If you're representing numbers that represent currency of any kind, use decimal, so that banks don't get ripped off and people don't get ripped off of half a cent multiplied by hundreds of thousands of dollars that add up to $10. There's a movie, right, where the people rip off people by stealing their extra tenths of cents, and all of a sudden they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars and go, geez, I wanted $500. And then the cops find out. And the bank gets mad because it stole their thousandths of a penny, and when you've got millions of dollars. Anyways, decimal places, use a double. Unless it's currency, switch to decimal. If you need text, use string. That's a type, string. Int, double, maybe decimal, string. Char holds a single character. Very rare that you need to hold single characters. You've got a whole bunch of them. Your address, your name, your phone number, that's lots of characters. Occasionally char comes into our life, but it's pretty rare. Bool, short for Boolean. If you need a true false value, absolutely, positively, use Boolean because it only takes up 1 byte. It's very small.
Maybe instead of booyah, you should have a say boolean.
I'm sorry?
Instead of booyah, you should have a say boolean.
No. And finally, as we just saw, date time for dates. So really there's only 5 that you have to worry about. Whole numbers, decimal numbers, strings, booleans, and dates. Those 5 are the primary different types of data that your computer is going to process. There's more. Those are the 5 primaries. So when you're trying to figure out what kind of data do I need, and you need to know in C#, those are the 5 with a potential curveball on decimal. All these others, bytes, shorts, ints, long, I used to worry about them, but my fellow programmer said, nope. Unless you're writing an application that's huge, unless you're writing for a device that has very little memory, and nowadays, that's your new iPhone wristwatch has got more memory than the computer that went, you've heard all those things. It's a computer that went to the moon had less memory than a lot of stuff. So it's not that big a deal. And I don't worry about them. They're for very advanced programming techniques. One of the ones with the stars, always. In C#, how do we do this? We start with the variable scope that we'll talk about in a minute. If you leave it out, there's a default. Then the variable's type comes first, so we have to tell C# that I need a double, or I need an integer. Then what are you going to call it? And then optionally, an initial value, where do you want it to start? So let's write something. I've been talking here. Let's type something in here. Before I can do this, I'm going to wipe it up. I need to declare a variable. And I can see from my IOP or from my pseudocode that I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 variables. What about bowler name? Don't need it. It's not there. This, what type of data is that? Is it a whole number? No. I'm looking at bowling date. Is it a whole number? No. Is it a double? No. Text? Maybe. But is that best? No. The best is date time. And if you're not sure, keep this page open. Now you need 3 monitors. Right? Keep the page open until you get used to those 5 types. They just become second nature very, very quickly. Because there's only 5. So I need a date time type. And in every language, by the way, that seems to be different. That's why I couldn't remember it. Then what are we going to call it? Whatever I called it in my design. Don't change names on me. Didn't I tell you? I promised you guys would change names on me, and it just happened so much. Some of you didn't. It's impressive. Semicolon, just like on all statements in C#. That command tells C#, when you get here, we need some memory. Enough for a date time. However much that is, go get it. And when Windows say, here's your memory, call it bowling date, because from now on, I'm calling it bowling date. What's with the green squiggle? It's a warning to you that you haven't used this. You declared memory, you requested memory, and never used it. Oh my gosh. I'm not done yet. Okay, I got this from my pseudocode. It's in there. I probably need it. So ignore the green squiggles. We have another standard. Every time you declare a variable, I want you to tell me what it's going to store. Doesn't the word bowling date make that pretty clear? Other programmers would argue with me and say, well, that's stupid. It's a good name. What do you need to comment it for? Because I'm not going to get into an argument with you about which ones you need to comment and which ones you don't. So we're going to comment them all. More spelling practice. And don't tell me in here just bowling date with a space or something. That's not good enough. Let's just say date these. Oh man, these games are bowled. Make it a little interesting. Not too long. Okay, now what? I need another, now we're done. That's cool. Now I need another one in my design for the 3 scores. What type? Suggestion? Sam, what do you think? What type for my bowling score? Which one makes most sense? Daytime? What? Boolean? No. String? Text? No. Double? Decimals? No. It's a whole number, right? Bowling is a whole number. I can't bowl 167 and a half. The average has got decimal places. That's a different problem. But the score itself is a whole number. So, I want an int. Lowercase int. Turn blue, that's good, built into the language. Teal also means built into the language. Different kind of built in. What am I going to call it? Whatever I called it, whatever I called it in the design. What happens if you misspell it here? What if you change the name? C doesn't care. C# says, cool, new variable. Called Sokra, or whatever I'd spelled it. Give a description. I'm anal, line those up. First game's score. Need another one. Can't I combine these? Yes, but you may not. You can, but how are you going to describe all 3 of them? Next semester, I'll get a little lax, and I'll let you do that. Better save. We could run, but I don't see any red squiggles, so it's going to run. And what do these do? They request memory, but only when we click. Let me show you what it does. When I click on button calculate, because that's a calculate click event, right? Click. Ooh. Good news is there's no smoke. There's no error messages. What'd it do? We click the button. Button calculate said he wants 1, 2, 3, 4 variables. Went to the operating system. I need enough for a date time. Thank you. Call that bowling date. Another one for an integer. Thank you. Call it score one. Another one. Another one. Thank you. Then what happened? Nothing. And here's the magic, and this is really cool. When we hit this curly bracket, that is the end of the method, right? All that memory is given back. So, and this, as far as we've gotten right now, this is pretty lame code. I need some memory. Thank you very much. Here you go. Have it back. I'm done. I didn't do anything with it. Windows doesn't care. Windows doesn't know. But the beauty of this is that your programs are as memory efficient as they can be. They don't hog all that memory, all those 20 bytes, whatever it is. They don't hog all that forever. Only as long as from here to there, which is what, a couple billionths of a second? And then it's automatically given back to the operating system. And then the user, what, 5 seconds, which is an eternity, right? Somewhere I have a video of Data from Star Trek who says, I was almost Borg for 5 or 7.8 seconds or whatever it was. And they go, I'm glad you changed my set. For me, that was an eternity. I was a Borg forever. Use a computer. 3 seconds later, the user clicks the calculate button again. They go, well, about time you did something. Here's your memory. Oh, thank you. Gave it right back again. But recognize that when you hit the end of a method, this memory is released, returned to the operating system. Decent place to stop, but let's go one step further. Yeah, I'm running. I want that bowling date. Now I have a variable. Remember, it was yelling at me for my variable. Equals DTP bowling date. Darn. And that's not the missing semicolon red squiggle, right? Because that's just this itty bitty one at the end. That's a big error. What's the problem? That's an object. You don't mess with objects. Dot value. Very good, John. All right, dot value. But here's what you can, if you're not sure, you touch this and it says that's a date time. See in front it says it's type. It always says that. That's a date time. I touch this. What's that? It's a date time picker. C#, most curly bracket programming languages are very prejudiced. They will not mix types. They hate it. There are exceptions. But this is like saying, add these two together. What do you get? Can't do it. For the recording, I'm holding up my remote and my water bottle. They're two different types. You say, take this and turn it into a remote. Can't do it. As John said, give me the value of that date picker. Now, what type is that? That's a date time. Notice on the left, it's a date time. That matches this. Now it's happy. I run my program. What happens? We get all the memory. We take what's in the date time picker and put it in this variable and quit. Still nothing shows up on the screen. But let me verify for you that this works. Don't follow. I'm going to click out here in the gray box. I get a little red ball. Ooh. If you get one and you don't want it, click it again. It'll go away. When I run my program, this is kind of like a stop sign. So when you get here, stop. Because Volker wants to look around. I'm going to put another one right here. You can put lots of these in. And let's change this to September 1st and click calculate. And the program stops. And now I can look around. Remember when we were doing the test plan? I said you can look around and touch stuff. I can touch this. What do you got? Oh, 9/1/2012 o'clock a.m. Cool. I can touch this. What do you got? 1/1. Oh. What happened? The tricky thing, this is part of the debugger. The tricky thing is this is the next line to execute. It has not executed yet. It's next. These buttons say, okay, skip over that command because it looks good and let's stop again. And now when I look, this says 9/1/2014. That's why we did that in the test plan. So if your program doesn't work, we can stop on things and say, what do I expect to see? And if I don't see them, try to figure out what's wrong with that line or maybe a line or two up above. But this also lets me test programs on the fly using the red dots. The problem with the red dots, once you put them in, they won't go away until you tell them to. Notice my program's still running. And I can use these buttons to go to the next line, the next line, the next line. We'll talk about this more as we go through. This was just a quick little demo. If you got red dots, do yourself a favor, turn them off. Okay. Let me breathe here for a second. We have declared a variable for everything that's on the left-hand side of an equal sign that's not an object. Those are variables. For every variable, we've got more overhead. This is finally the command that's in my pseudocode, right? There's more overhead. In order to use variables, you first have to declare them. I put all my variable declarations at the beginning, come on mouse, at the beginning of my methods. I just lump them all together. Perfectly acceptable to declare them when you need them, though it just makes me a little nervous. I'm not used to it, but I see it a lot now in other people's code. I declare all my variables first, so they're all in one place. Then you can start your pseudocode. And we're not done yet, right? Because we still need a variable for series average the next bowling date. We'll do those next time. It'd be a good review talking about those things.